Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're discussing an important new development in the fight against COVID-19. Now, a newly approved medication may offer a completely new way to protect people after they have been exposed to the virus. Recently, Shionogi announced that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, has approved XOCOVA, also known by its generic name Ensitrelvir, for post-exposure prophylaxis, often called PEP, against COVID-19. The medication is approved for adults and adolescents aged 12 years and older who have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. Despite improvements in population immunity and available treatments, COVID-19 remains highly transmissible. At the same time, the virus continues to evolve. New subvariants of the Omicron family continue to emerge. Examples include strains such as the so-called cicada variant and NB.1.8.1. And many of these newer strains are highly contagious. Studies suggest that as many as 47% of people living in the same household as an infected individual may eventually develop COVID-19 themselves. According to estimates from the US CDC, between October 1, 2025 and May 23, 2026, there were approximately 3.8 million to 12.4 million new COVID-19 cases in the United States alone. These infections resulted in an estimated 800,000 to 2.3 million outpatient visits, 120,000 to 240,000 hospitalizations, and between 13,000 and 42,000 deaths. These numbers remind us that this Ensitrelvir approval is significant because it introduces the first and currently the only oral antiviral option specifically designed to help prevent COVID-19 after exposure. In other words, people may now have a treatment option they can take after encountering an infected individual but before they become sick themselves. So what exactly is Ensitrelvir, and how does it work? SARS-CoV-2 relies on an enzyme called the main protease, sometimes referred to as 3-CL protease, to replicate itself inside human cells. Without this enzyme, the virus cannot efficiently produce the proteins it needs to create new viral particles. Ensitrelvir works by selectively blocking this critical enzyme. By inhibiting the main protease, the drug suppresses viral replication and limits the virus's ability to spread within the body. Ensitrelvir was previously approved in Japan for the treatment of COVID-19. However, it is important to note that Ensitrelvir is not currently approved in the United States as a treatment for active COVID-19 infection. Instead, the new FDA approval focuses specifically on prevention after exposure. The approval was supported by positive findings from the Phase 3 SCORPIO-PEP study. This trial is particularly noteworthy because it remains the only Phase 3 study of an oral antiviral medication to successfully achieve its primary endpoint for preventing symptomatic COVID-19 following exposure to an infected individual. The results were impressive. Among people who had been exposed but were not yet infected, Ensitrelvir reduced the risk of developing symptomatic COVID-19 by 67% through day 10 compared with placebo. That level of protection represents a meaningful reduction in risk and demonstrates the drug's potential value as a preventive strategy. Safety results were also encouraging. Overall, Ensitrelvir was generally well tolerated. The rates of adverse events were similar between the treatment and placebo groups. The most commonly reported side effects occurring in at least 1% of participants included headache, diarrhea, and cough. Notably, there were no reports of altered taste, also known as dysgeusia, that were attributed to Ensitrelvir during the study. This new approval introduces an important additional layer of protection against COVID-19. One of the most notable aspects of Ensitrelvir is that it fills an important gap in the current COVID-19 prevention landscape. To better understand where Ensitrelvir fits into the current treatment landscape, it is useful to compare it with existing antiviral options. Current standard antiviral therapies for COVID-19 include Paxlovid, Veklury, and Lagevrio. However, these medications are approved as treatments after a patient has already tested positive or developed symptoms. They are not approved specifically for post-exposure prevention. Like Paxlovid, Ensitrelvir functions as a 3-CL protease inhibitor. Both medications target the same viral pathway and suppress viral replication by interfering with the virus's main protease enzyme. However, there are important differences. Paxlovid requires the use of ritonavir as a boosting agent. Ritonavir is known for causing significant drug-drug interactions and is frequently associated with a persistent bitter or metallic taste, known as dysgeusia. Ensitrelvir, by contrast, is a single-agent therapy and did not demonstrate drug-related altered taste in Phase 3 clinical studies. Ensitrelvir also differs from Veklury, also known as remdesivir. Veklury requires intravenous administration and typically involves visits to a healthcare facility for infusions. Ensitrelvir, on the other hand, is taken at home as an oral medication, making it considerably more convenient for many patients. Compared with other oral antivirals, this regimen offers an additional convenience advantage. Both Paxlovid and Lagevrio require twice-daily dosing for 5 days, while Ensitrelvir requires only once-daily administration after the initial loading dose. From a scientific standpoint, the drugs also differ in their mechanisms of action. Ensitrelvir and Paxlovid both target the viral 3CL protease. Lagevrio works differently by acting as a viral mutagen that targets RNA polymerase. Veklury also targets viral replication but functions as a direct RNA polymerase inhibitor. The FDA approval of Ensitrelvir came ahead of its scheduled Prescription Drug User Fee Act, or PDUFA, action date of June 16, 2026, highlighting the agency's recognition of the importance of this new preventive option. If you know that you have recently been exposed to COVID-19, whether through a household contact, travel, or an outbreak situation, healthcare experts recommend contacting your healthcare provider promptly to discuss whether a prescription for Ensitrelvir may be appropriate for your circumstances. And that's all for today's update. If you found this video helpful and informative, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future updates on the latest developments in medicine, public health, and healthcare innovation. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.